we're taking another hard turn in a different direction, from comedy to horror. Set in the world of Stephen King's It universe, It, Welcome to Derry takes audiences back to the 1960s to expand the vision established by filmmaker Andy Muschietti in the feature films It and It Chapter 2. We have Andy here for our discussion. Please welcome him out. And before we get started, we're going to show you a clip.
Classes have been canceled for the rest of the day. Upperclassmen are excused, but all other students, please report to the auditorium for an all-school assembly.
Who do you think would have the ugliest baby?
Oh, Bert the Turtle and Teddy Urine.
What about Lily Bainbridge and that Maddie guy?
That's so gross. My parents don't like it very much. I'm so far.
Where are all the teachers?
Settle down, students. Settle down. We have a special treat today designed to entertain and delight. Please allow me to introduce the one and only Pennywise the Dancing Clown. Hiya, kiddos!
When I close my eyes and I dream of you, I see your pretty faces and I taste them too. But my, oh my, how I wish to cry every time we say goodbye.
Very scary. So I do want to talk about that scene, but first I was hoping you could share a bit about what inspired you to kind of look back to the origins of Pennywise in the first place. You know, when you were working on the films, what made you want to explore his origins?
I guess the feeling that we still had so much ground to cover. I had read this book many decades ago, and it's very close to me, and it's very close to my heart. And there's so many stories in that book that are not couldn't possibly cover in 2 movies. And we were doing It too, and with Bill Skarsgård, we had this, yeah. We kept having, during the shoot of It too, we kept having these conversations about the possibilities of making an origin story of how did Bob Gray become the clown? How did It become Pennywise? Who was Bob Gray? Bob Gray is one of the big enigmas in the book that are intentionally put there to create tension and are never solved. Our idea was, to just like open a little window into that enigma, but soon after, Bill went on to make his movies, and I started thinking about what this would look like, because we were talking always about a movie. We're movie people, and we never thought of doing this on a show. So I went back to the book, and I sort of realized that there was like a strange, invisible story that could be told backwards for a specific reason. For everyone here who watched the show, how many of you watched the show? Okay, so at the end of the show, you understand what's going on, why we're telling the story backwards. So I saw there a very interesting story about not only the origin of Pennywise as an incarnation, but also about the bigger mythology of that basically that lives under the water. You know, that iceberg under the water, which is the big mythology of the world of it, but also the macroverse, and all this mythology that Stephen King created that is also like more expanded in books like on the series of The Dark Tower, for instance.
So that scene that we watch is actually, from later in the season, and we don't actually see Pennywise for quite a while. But we do see a lot of other terrifying manifestations that it has chosen. How did you kind of decide what it could look like besides Pennywise? And also, can you talk about working with VFX and practical effects to make them come to life?
Yes. So yeah, you're right about that. We decided it was a very conscious decision to delay the apparition of the monster as much as we could. It was a bet that worked, I think, because people were, being a weekly series is like, okay, when is the fucking clown gonna appear?
You know he's coming.
He's coming.
Yeah.
And I think it worked in the sense of like classic horror, like, the classic example of Jaws, which is like, you don't see the monster and then it appears and it's like very gratifying. The incarnations, some of them were very tied to the fears of the era, and because it's 1962, 27 years before 1989, which is the events of the first movie. 1962, the collective fears were different than, well, some of them were the same, but some of them were very particular about the era. Nuclear panic was one of them. We exploited that one in particular, the fear of birth defects, radiation, all these things that were in the conversation. Not only the fear of an explosion. Bert the turtle is a real character. Bert the turtle that appears in the scene was a mascot that was created by some organism to teach kids how to basically survive a nuclear attack. And they would just like screen the PSA, is it called? Or
Yeah.
on schools. And it was ridiculous, obviously, because an explosion. Why would it help you to go under the?
Yeah, I don't think
desk?
turtling is going to do anything in a nuclear attack, but
But it was one of those things. And so, to your question, creatures like in the first episode, the mutant baby that appears
so scary.
has to do with that. I think kids were terrified. I mean, I grew up in the 80s, and there was some kind of revamping of the nuclear panic with the tensions between America and Russia. And movies like The Day After, was it? The Day After, with Steve Guttenberg? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Red Dawn, that was more fun than The Day After. The Day After was pretty bleak, and Steve Guttenberg on a performance like no other. Very out of, anyway, I'm not going to talk about it, but I felt like growing up, I was like probably 8, 9 years old, and I was like, shit, this is real. This could happen. Imagine in the 60s where it was even more real. In the early 60s with the Cold War and the missile crisis actually going on, that's what's going to happen. Basically exploit those little things that were part of the conversation of the era. The fears, and then you have very more deep and personal fears that are part of not so much about the cultural moment, but yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of the mutant baby, the first episode is kind of a bait and switch because you introduce a lot of kids that by the end of the first episode, the mutant baby mutilates them.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert, sorry. But it's a cool scene, and it's really gruesome, and I think the scene that we just watched is really gruesome as well, and you really push the boundaries from the films a lot, and I wanted to ask you about the decision to do that and why you wanted to go even darker with the series.
Yeah. Yes.
Agreed.
You answered it because it's great to do so. Is that what you said?
Exactly.
You took it out. You took it from my mouth. Yeah. First, I want to say that it's not because for people who didn't see the show or didn't see the movies, it feels like it's only like about like horror and gore, but there's so much more. And I think that I want to announce this. This is a story and a show for everyone.
Yeah. Well, and I don't just mean darker and like it's violent, but it is psychologically, I think, darker.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it just really digs into a lot of the themes.
It does. It does, and I think that
intense.
I think two things. First, I did want to like raise the volume in terms of intensity and horror, but more than anything, emotionally, I wanted to do a show that would touch your heart as much as possible. And I think we did. I think we did it. And making a TV show allows you to basically expand the stories to a point where the emotional engagement is deep. And this is something that I knew rationally, but I didn't really accept it viscerally until I made it. Because I never made TV before. But I saw as it was happening, week after week, that how the conversations of the audience started to happen, the expectation about the characters, about the events, and that was really, really gratifying.
Yeah, you do have so much more opportunity to really explore, 1960s America and what that was, including racism, including, exploration of authority and nuclear panic, and all of that is wrapped up in the origins of Pennywise. And I'm curious, when you were thinking about this as a feature film and then you kind of pivoted to a series, how did that help you just expand your creative process to dig into those themes?
Well, all those themes are like inevitable because the moment that you're going to a town in America in the 60s, you have to face those themes. Which is it's important because you cannot. It's just weird to tell a story with like trying to dodge the social cultural tragedies that were going on. And in the book, Stephen King makes really a point of racism, of misogyny, of abuse in all levels, on the structure of a cell, which is the small town in America. Also to the point where it's hard to draw the line between the horrors of the monster and the horrors of human made by human hand. And that's something that he plays with all the time. And we try to also express that in the movies and the show, which is the worst thing that happened in this town are not the product of the crazy clown.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
this town is the monster. That's what Charlotte Hanlon, which is one of the main characters, says when her son Will Hanlon says, "But the clown is asleep," and she says, "The monster is asleep," and she says, "This town is the monster."
It adds so much context to like the generational trauma of the Hanlon family as well, to see that unfold and see their decision to stick around the town.
Yeah, that was also like a part of like the need to tell the story backwards, is to understand the characters that we learn to love, like Mike Hanlon, which is such a central figure. Without Mike Hanlon, there wouldn't be any story in it. He's the one who summons the losers and finally kill the monster. And yeah, I mean, there is an extrapolation in terms of what his backstory is, because in the book, it's there. It's a way, but we needed to flesh it out with more events about his family. We created the fact that Leroy, his dad, is actually a war hero that carries also the scars of, not only literally, but the scars of war. And he's still a guy that believes in the system, and is married to a woman who does not believe in the system. Yeah.
Before you wrap things up, I know you're kind of in development on season 2. It hasn't been officially greenlit yet, but how's it coming along? You know, you're going to go back another 27 years. That's the plan.
Yeah, it's 1935. We're now working on it, and it's so much fun. It's so much fun, and
Any
can't
hints
wait.
as to what you're exploring in 1935?
Yes. So for the ones of you who read the books, probably the Bradley Gang sounds familiar. The Bradley Gang was a gang of bank robbers that not accidentally, but they were on their way somewhere, and they stopped in Derry to buy some ammo, and something horrible happens. So the Bradley Gang is based on the Brady Gang, which is a real life gang of robbers that were executed in the streets of Bangor, Maine. And now we're not creating, the event. The big paroxysm of violence in this case will be the massacre of the Bradley Gang. There's like 3 big events in Welcome to Derry season 1. It's the burning of the Black Spot, the massacre of the Bradley Gang, and season 3 would be the explosion of the Kitchener Iron Works, which is a big explosion, an Easter egg hunt where 100 kids lost their lives. And Pennywise is always there, like fucking around, So that much I can tell you. But it's fascinating because the thing that is so much fun in this stage of development is that we're facing an era which is the Depression era that changes dramatically the setup of things. There's no suburban comfort. There's no the trope of the kids that live in suburbia and they ride their bikes and suddenly one of them disappears. It's nothing like this. This is in 1935. It's a very dire situation. People are very poor. They're struggling to survive. And so the setup will be very different.
Well, I'm very intrigued. So I hope we get to see it sometime soon. Thank you so much for being here.
No, thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you guys for to be here.